have to go quickly to Parliament, where the minority is holding a press conference on the back of the coronavirus deal that the finance minister is proposing. Let's go right now to Parliament, where the press conference has started.
And for your purposes and for my purpose, Order 6 is on, and I quote, where no provision is provided for in the standing orders. But as the Honorable Collins Dowda rightly and the whip responded to him, when it comes to the end of a meeting, and for those of you who want to appreciate, sittings make up a meeting and meetings make up a session under Article 112 of the 1992 Constitution. And therefore, to say that the Speaker is exercising powers because no provision have been made for is neither here nor there, because our standing orders in Order 42, if you want me to elucidate further, I may be compelled to read it full. Mr. Speaker may at any time suspend a sitting of the House. Mr. Speaker shall be responsible after consultation with the House, for fixing the time when a sitting of the House should be adjourned sine die, or to a particular day, or to an hour, or part of the same day. So when you adjourn or suspend and we don't know when we are coming, then you have provided more confusion in the minds of members of Parliament. So when you say further in the exercise of the powers conferred on the Speaker by Order 6 of the Standing Orders of the Parliament of Ghana, the Right Honourable Speaker subsequently directed that Parliament resume sitting. He didn't direct when we resume sitting. At the time we suspended, nobody knew when we are back. That is the wrong we are pointing out to. And let's be careful. There can be what you call benevolent dictators in multi-party constitutional democracy. Can you imagine tomorrow a certain president or a certain speaker just walks to the chamber and walks to his seat and bow his head down and say, I've suspended Parliament, and walks away? That is a precedent that is being set. And that is the threat and the danger we are walking you through. We would have thought that he would have come under Order 75, not 72. We are primarily also concerned that in these matters, Parliament doesn't only exercise an oversight function, an oversight role in terms of ministries, departments, and agencies. Members of Parliament are also representatives of the people, and therefore we exercise a representative function. Pursuant to that, we've been requesting the Minister for Health to come and give Parliament an update. It is not for government not even to allow technical people from Noguchi and from the Kumasi Institute of Research to be making the determination. COVID is not necessarily a political matter, and it's not a matter for political showmanship as we are witnessing, or matters for political campaigning when they pretend and say that we should be national and we should coalesce together. Let it be demonstrated that they are respecting the letter and spirit of the Constitution. Now, before I take you through some of the issues, you saw the Minister of Finance came to Parliament today, again with a statement. Which statement they hurriedly again said they are relying on Article 1771 of the 1992 Constitution. And with your indulgence, I like to quote it before I make my elucidation on it. 1771. You see, when you apply the law conveniently to suit your purposes, you have a problem. We are demanding absolute transparency from the President and his COVID technical team to respond to this issue. Today, the Minister for Finance, after a statement in Parliament, I have a copy here for you. You got copies. Save the appendix that is attached. What he sought to do was to rehash his words on 30th March to Parliament and to say that that has been laid in Parliament. Do we lay statements in Parliament? If you want to vary expenditure, pursuant to the Public Financial Management Act and by the procedures of Parliament, you come by motion. Now, if you say we granted you stabilization fund and the media raised these critical questions for us, Nana Addo Dankwa and Ken Ofori-Atta, where is their buffer program? Because stabilization fund created under the NDC, the PRMA Act 815, we invested that $319 million US. So what have they added onto it as a government? And the interest which have accrued to the $319 million, because it just can't be there. And the name as it applies, stabilization fund, you've seen them beat a retreat on heritage fund because it's a no-go area for them. And that fund, the two funds were created for a purpose. One, when you have distortions as we have, you can rely on the stabilization fund. So stabilization fund, there's 300 million. We are capping only 219 million. That gives you cumulatively some 1 billion. Now, by their own estimate that they presented on 30th March, they require 562 million for their COVID eradication program. Now, if you look at what the Minister of Finance have done today, I'll come and I'll respond to the President's addresses to the nation. You have food packages and hot meals, 40 million. Support to households, 280 million Ghana cedis. Which households and to which family? How was it determined? A need or a means test? We need to know. And we are demanding that COVID be handled above partisanship. And it truly must be nationalistic in all its forms and character as we collectively endeavor to prevent it, to contain it, and to manage it. Our numbers are not as alarming as we've read from other jurisdictions, whether it's Italy or Spain, even the UK. Sometimes Ghana creates an impression as if our situation is worse than what is happening in Italy or Spain or even in the United Kingdom. That is not the issue, in order that they have justification for some of those issues. Now, when you say provision of water and sanitation, 200 million, we are told that we are not to pay water bills. So what is that provision meant for? Is government going to cushion with that money of 200 million? Is it going to Ghana Water for purposes that citizens will not pay? If you see the appendix breakdown of Ken Ofori-Atta to Parliament today, it has provision for water and sanitation. We are demanding answers. How much is for water and how much is for sanitation? And an elaborate breakdown of the 100 million plus the 100 million giving us the 200 million. Now we see relief for health workers, which is an improvement better than frontline workers. If we're going to talk of just frontline workers, nurses and doctors who are likely to come into contact or who would be in contact are potential frontline workers. And therefore, if you have a package for them, it must be expansive enough to deal with that particular issue. Now, waiver of personal income taxes for all health workers for 3 months. Even as the minister spoke today, I'm struggling to find a paragraph in his statement. By virtue of Article 174 of the 1992 Constitution, the power to waive taxes is vested in Parliament, not the executive and not the president. And therefore, if he wants a review of the income taxes, that must have been a necessary part of today's proceedings submitted to us since Sunday. I find that conspicuously lost in the Minister of Finance submission to Parliament, and we are demanding better particulars of it. Waiver of personal income taxes, and to remind the President that the power to waive taxes is not vested in him as President. You see, we are just cautioning that during this period of impositions and restrictions, we are not saying that the President should not act and act in a manner to contain it. But he must respect due process and respect our institutions. You also find allowance for 50% of basic salary for all frontline health workers for 4 months. That I won't comment so much. It's not everything there which is not right. But you have Basin Ayalulu buses. So at least after all, President Mahama and the NDC got it right. The abandoned Ayalulu of the NDC and President Mahama have become useful to support Ghana's collective effort to find it. Where attribution is necessary, they should be able to do that. Now, 3, soft loans for micro, small, and medium-sized businesses. We know this, Minister, sometimes disbursement of public resources in Ghana, they are distributed as if they are MPP party resources. We have to remind this government that there is a delicate and an important distinction between party resources and state resources, and that every Ghanaian is entitled to the benefits of this 600 million. Now, is it 600 or 1 billion? In one breath, the communication is 1 billion. In another breath, there is 600 million. That also provides for some confusion. But what we are demanding is to know the beneficiaries. What kind of businesses are they engaged in? For instance, of the 600 million, it would have been very useful if we could just make a determination that the hospitality industry is hard hit by it, the hotels, and staff, supporting staff are all at home. How much of it is going to whom and for what? We need to have an understanding and an appreciation for it. Now, President Nana Addo Dankwa has been responsive to the Ghanaian people with his briefs on the state of Ghana and the state of COVID in Ghana. But you see that the level of consultation have to be deepened, particularly with the stakeholders. I'm not sure that the Ghana Registered Nurses Association was consulted before this announcement on health line workers or frontline workers, neither the Ghana Medical Association, as you can witness it. Now, distinguished ladies and gentlemen of the press, the president was emphatic on water for 4 months. For 3 months, maybe he will be generous enough. For 3 months, no payment of water bills. But all of a sudden, Ghana Water was attempting to say that if you owe them, you would not benefit. Also a manifestation that proper and conclusive consultation was not done. Then more importantly, electricity bills and electricity consumption, naturally, because we are home, will go up. It is comparatively more expensive than water, as I understand it, and over 3 million customers for that. And you know, in respect of electricity, when your credit is gone, it's gone. It's automatic disconnection. So we demand clarity from the president. In this instance that you are not working and you are home, you cannot even load your credit. So if he is granting that relief for electricity, let him say so. We are demanding that he does that for electricity. We are demanding that because as your units pass out, you are automatically in some darkness of a sort or light out. You are not working, you are not earning, you cannot earn. It is not to tell ECJ that they shouldn't disconnect you when automatically you are offline. So once we demand a clarity, it is our considered view that he should extend water to electricity and demand for clarity in respect of that. Even in terms of data, those of you who are home, to manage the social and economic impact of it, everybody, and how you manage your stress and anxiety, it's important that data charges, as we witness across the globe, subsidized or lowered in order that we can communicate well and deal with this emergency. We are not seeing that, even though that was hinted in one of the earlier statements of the Minister for Finance. Petroleum prices, we expect that there would be a downwards trend, as was well articulated by Excellency John Dramani Mahama. And we demand that there is clarity in respect of the frontline staff. Who is it and who gets what? The security agencies are not too happy with the 100 Ghana cedis allowance. Some of them have reported to us as a minority that the food, in some instances, they've been told that someone will cook for them. How did that cooking happen? Is their command structures in charge? Are they responsible, or are they outsourcing it? Is it with their tacit approval in order that they get that? So we demand a national COVID action plan of the president, which should be an elaboration of the COVID alleviation program. And we expect that there will be some expenditure cuts, even from the Flagstaff office. The number of staff must reduce, not increase, as our colleague indicated the last time on the floor of Parliament. So we demand that COVID-19, the alleviation program, be non-partisan. All across the country, you don't give contracts to party apparatchiks and then pretend and say that it's non-partisan. Who is distributing what and where? We demand to know. We are not too impressed. The first stage of this is about testing, monitoring, and you know what's happening even in South Africa to South Korea. If there is zero testing, there will be zero results in terms of numbers. So inadequate testing, you are likely to pretend that all is well when all is not well. So we need to up the testing and monitoring and tracing regime in order to contain the infectiousness of this particular novel coronavirus. Now, PPEs, even though it's a challenge globally, it's only fair and appropriate that we demand how much of what PPEs have been acquired by the state, apart from those that was generously donated by the Chinese businessman. We need to know how much Jack Ma, we need to know personal protection equipment, what have been bought and what have been used where. And we also demand that testing centers, is it just Accra, Kumasi, and the 2 research centers that have been named, or we are prepared countrywide from Wa through Bolga, Navrungu, through Wale to Tamale, Salaga to Pandai. If it does break out, we can be sure that some testing can be done and some containment can be done. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, during periods of this nature, there are infractions on fundamental freedoms and human rights. We recognize that the President has issued an EI, an executive instrument. But interestingly, one of the instruments is already on communication. Is it the case that they were waiting for this pandemic to issue and add on to that to have access to people's mobile data? Warning signals. The telcos are not particularly happy about it, and we demand what is the motivation for that demand in the request. Now, there are infractions on human rights, and we demand that privacy of communication is still respected. The Commission on Human Rights and Administrative Justice, SHRAJ, must take particular interest in monitoring across the country all human rights infractions and fundamental freedoms and provide a report for our scrutiny and study as Ghanaians. It does not mean that when there are those impositions and restrictions, we lose those rights. Our rights to dignity and honor must still be respected. In my own Tamale, the mayor is in some excessive excitement even went to a graveside and drove the family away, even when the numbers were probably less than the officially announced 25. And then when you are husband and wife and are riding a motorbike in your poverty, he can beat one of you because you must do social distancing. So one of the spouses may suffer because of it. We are saying that minimum force is defined by the cost of Ghana, and therefore any excessive use of force by the security agencies under this moment should not be accepted and tolerated. They can, with politely, I should commend some of them, even driving through the House to Parliament. They will look through and ask you where you are going. But those of them that have registered some impunity in terms of the violations and others, Mr. Eric Ofochu and Ashaman, our honorable member for the area, is monitoring and following the story very closely. There was an initial attempt at cover-up. Our condolences and sympathy. Any innocent life lost becomes a matter that we should deal with. You saw also the president on a Sunday. He had hurriedly constituted a national trust fund for COVID-19. Then subsequently came to Parliament with a bill. Then Parliament was dancing to fit his purpose on Sunday in order that when he was inaugurating it, didn't he know that there was no law and that he needed to come by law? So we are still reminding him of due process. You don't go and inaugurate a 7-member committee, then hardly come to Parliament, then Parliament in our rubber stamp status will go and say the governing board is the same 7, the same number of women. We must be careful of retroactivity, which is not tolerated within the framework of the 1992 Constitution, but undoubtedly a laudable initiative to mobilize public-private resources to support government effort. So by this press conference, we are demanding better particulars from government. If you want to spend 1 billion, in another breath you reduce it to 600 million. Now, as I indicated, there are 1.2 billion, and they've run to your committee on finance, and I'll come back to the numbers again, but just to let you know, those of you who have studied little constitutional law as I have done, they come under Article 177. I saw it in the Finance Committee report, which reads, and I quote, "There shall be paid into the contingency fund monies voted for the purpose by Parliament, and advances may be made from the fund which are authorized by the committee responsible for financial measures in Parliament." So they got it right there. Whenever the committee is satisfied that there has arisen an urgent or unforeseen need for expenditure for which no other provision exists to meet that need. That's 1771. But read the two. Very instructive, and we are avoiding it. Where an advance is made from the contingency fund, a supplementary estimate shall be presented as soon as possible to Parliament. Where is that supplementary estimate? And even if you read 1772 very well, it says, for the purpose of replacing the amount so advanced. So it means spending from the stabilization fund is only an impress. By Article 1772 of the Constitution, he's only been granted an impress. He must come back how he intends to recover. So they shouldn't be reading 171 in isolation. 1771 in isolation, leaving out the two. I know the minority have members on the Finance Committee. I see the ranking member, and I'm reminding the ranking member and his colleagues on the Finance Committee that the Finance Committee of Parliament does not exist in isolation. And I refer you to Article 103 of the 1992 Constitution, and it quotes, "Parliament shall appoint standing committees and other committees as may be necessary for the effective discharge of its functions." So be reminded that whether Finance Committee, Environment Committee, Mines and Energy Committee is to assist Parliament in the discharge of our duties. So the Minister for Finance, when he comes and conveniently just read a statement and then lay it, we need 1.2 billion. Is that the same thing as the Banwea exchange rate, 5.8 to Ghana cedis to a dollar? Does it give you 1.2? So any money beyond the stabilization fund, the Minister of Finance necessarily must come back to Parliament for us to give him the authority to spend. It's only out of the stabilization fund the Finance Committee of Parliament can guide him. I saw in Section 23 of the Petroleum Revenue Management Act, but even that, he has two options. If they were consulting, we would have shown him an easier option, because in this matter, he may not be able to pay the 290 million back immediately because it's COVID and unforeseen exigency to deal with. If they had come to the NDC, we could be wiser to offer them some advice so that they didn't need to walk through all the process of 171 and 2. If they had men, they could have, consistent with the PRMA, borrowed and dealt with the emergency, because the PRMA allows you either to send the money to the contingency fund or to service a loan. We demand a national COVID-19 plan which should be adequately costed to guide our national response preparedness and social mitigation strategy. And we pray what is happening elsewhere does not get to us in Ghana. That one, we join the President or all well-meaning Ghanaians in their prayers. But we want to know what government intends to do. You see, a political party is raising more money, even more than a trust fund, or spending about the same thing as to what a trust fund is doing. It's significant for our purposes. So I'm sure I'm done with generally the essence of this press briefing. You have seen the, I'll yield over to the whip, and then the ranking member of finance will come, and probably he will do his fancy tree version of the presentation as I have tried to do. Deputy Leader, I recommend you joining the Finance Committee. Thanks for your presence here together with the leadership and members of the Finance Committee. So, ladies and gentlemen of the press, we want Ghana to be governed, even with COVID, with due process and respect to the rule of law and the institutions of Ghana. We cannot run this country at the whims of any individual statesmanship. I thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Leader. Colleagues from the media, colleagues, members of Parliament, our colleagues from the Finance Committee just came back. So before we take questions, we'll take some updates from the Deputy Leader who sat through the Finance Committee meeting. Then the ranking, I thought he was going to do three.
No, he'll do.
Okay, so Honorable Atu Forsen will take us through the updates from the meeting. I know a number of things have been said by the leader, but he will give a more detail, some of the push and pull that happened in the committee. And maybe probably try to summarize it to in three, then we'll let you ask the question. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Leader. The Finance Committee just left. We concluded the meeting. Before us was a presentation by Ken Oforiatta, our Minister for Finance, and he's asking us to consider and give him the authorization to spend 1.2 billion Ghana cedis. Leader, we have a number of concerns with that one. Our first concern relates to the fact that all the items that they made requests for, they did not provide us with breakdown costing. For instance, they said that they want 40 million Ghana cedis for food, package, and hot meals, without giving us the number of people, 40 million Ghana cedis, without giving us the details as to how much a pack of food is going to cost, the unit cost. Again, they said they are giving 40 million and 3 million to Ghana, 40.3 million Ghana cedis to Ghana National Buffer Stocks Company. also to buy food and distribute without giving us the details of what they are actually going to buy from the Ghana Buffer Stocks Company. Again, they have projected that they are going to spend 200 million Ghana cedis as water bills for across the country. We needed to know the breakdown of costs, how much of this is going to Ghana Water, how much is going to community water, and how much of this is going to go to the tanker drivers. Because there are homes that they don't have water, and tanker drivers are those who are going to take the water and send to them, so including hospitals. So we needed information on that. Most importantly, they said that they are requesting Parliament of Ghana to allow them to take money from the contingency fund to take care of the taxes that the president said they are going to waive for the health workers. Our argument is simple. 241.42 million Ghana cedis. Our argument is that we are ready as a minority to grant tax waiver under Article 174 of our Constitution, so that we will not take money from government coffers for the health workers. So government, minorities in a position to allow them to get a tax exemption for the period. And we are proposing that this 241.42 million should be used for the purposes of subsidizing electricity bills for residential customers in the lockdown areas. So we have made that position firmly, and we hope that they will accept it. In fact, we were told at the committee that that is not their immediate priority. Okay? That is not the government's position at this time. But we are insisting that until we approve this 1.2 billion, this 241.42 million should be used for the purposes of subsidy for the residential customers in the locked-up areas, particularly in Accra and Kumasi areas that we are talking about. Then again, they are saying that they are going to use 80 million Ghana cedis as allowances for 50% of the basic salary for all frontline health workers for 4 months. Now, we agree to that. But what we are saying is we want a definition of who constitutes frontline health workers. The president informed us that they are now in consultation to find out a definition. So they don't know. They don't know. But you heard the minority leader saying that we want this money to be extended to all healthcare workers. And our flag bearer has made that point. So that's our position. And then again, they are saying for 2 weeks, Ayololo buses that will be used for health workers in Accra, Tamakumase, and Kaswa areas. They are going to spend 2 million Ghana cedis as fuel. 2 million Ghana cedis as fuel. Again, we want to know the costings. And then what surprises us most is that, let me clarify something. We had another expose at the committee meeting. We were told that the tax waiver will only be given to government workers, health workers. So if you are a private health worker, you are not covered under that. And so we insist that that should cover all health workers, not only government health workers. Because they also play a role. They also play a role. And then we are saying that the minister informed us that an amount of 600 million Ghana cedis will be used as soft loans for micro, small, and medium-sized businesses. Again, they failed to give us the terms of the loan, terms of recovery, and who qualifies to get that loan. Our position is simple. In as much as we support that all of this money must be spent, we also have a responsibility to make sure that individuals do not benefit unduly from this. Because we are aware that in times of emergency, people take advantage of emergency and enrich their pocket. We in the minority is saying that we hold the government accountable to the use of public funds. Again, we don't want this use to be politicized. In as much as we have approved that 40 million Ghana cedis should be used for hot meals, we don't want to see party chairmen, parliamentary candidates leading the charge to distribute food. Because indeed, it is your money. It is my money. It's the money that belongs to all of us. It is not money that belongs to MPP. It is the money for all of us. And in any case, these are monies that we accumulated in the stabilization fund by the previous administration. And so we will not accept political parties to lead a charge to distribute food. This should be done by Ghanaians other than political parties. And that's why we are saying that we recommend that a bipartisan committee be established to oversee how this expenditure is managed and how this has been done. And then report to Parliament regularly. As and when there is a requirement for them to come to Parliament, we ask them that they should report to Parliament. So this is our position from the Finance Committee. We hope that as a matter of urgency, they will bring the supplementary estimate before Parliament so that we can look at the detail. But as we speak, they have just given us composite numbers, headline numbers without any estimation, as if no work has been done, and somebody sat somewhere and gave us some sort of 40 million, 30 million, and then 600 million without any proper estimation. Unfortunately.
Thank you very much. So no composite numbers. They should provide better particulars to the proposed expenditure and a detailed breakdown. I'll yield the floor subsequently for him to do the tree component. But just in concluding on my part, the private sector of Ghana will be hardest hit by COVID-19 in the coming months. What the private sector of Ghana is asking for is not dole out of handouts of cash. They have asked for tax incentives and tax reliefs. Government must heed to them and engage the Association of Ghana Industry, GUTA and others much more extensively. Because when it is money, we will not know who will benefit from it. They are saying that deferred tax payment, for instance, even if you say that the private sector should have their taxes deferred for 3, 4, half a year, that will be more beneficial and direct to them than saying that you are looking for them with 600 million Ghana cedis to loan to distribute to them. That is significant. If you look at his memo he brought to Parliament, he concludes by saying that he will provide brief to Cabinet from time to time. It's only fair he asks Parliament, even though I naturally could assume it, but it's important that as representatives of the people, we know what expenditure he is doing when. So I should thank the members and leaders of the Finance Committee. I'll take 1 or 2 questions, then yield the floor to Honorable Atu Forson, who will respect social distancing. Then he will address the tree component of this press briefing. Yes, I'll take the next 2, 3 questions. Leader, your name and then you go ahead.
Leader, thank you very much. My name is Prince Alpha. I report for Pink FM. My direct question go to Honorable Atu Forson. Honorable, with all this proposal that was made from the minority side to the finance, how was the response from the finance minister and the chairman of the finance committee? Because looking at all this amount that you are quoting, going to organize this lunch without breaking it down, a day will be maybe 10 cedis per pack or 12 cedis per pack. And looking at what you are telling us.
And to how many people they are feeding.
And to how many people that you are going to feed them. So how
and areas lockdown or unlocked down.
Areas.
The poverty is everywhere, both in locked and unlocked areas.
Precisely. Thank you.
Next question. Honorable, to take note.
My name is Kweku Sechidanso. I report for GhanaMPs.com.
Sechidanso, go ahead.
I believe we are not in normal times, and the standing orders, as you indicated, are being flouted. With the work being done at the Finance Committee, are we likely to see the work being brought to the floor of the House to be discussed, or they would take the decision and that's it?
I would attempt to answer that one. I heard the speaker say he referred to the Finance Committee to report. But he is reminded that Article 1771, you can't read it in isolation without 2. And you can't read it in isolation from the Public Financial Management Act. And you cannot read it in isolation from Article 103 of the Constitution and the powers vested in Parliament under Article 93. Next question.
It's actually just a follow-up to that. At the Finance Committee meeting, before the meeting started, the majority leader, HMS Abunsu, relayed to committee members that what they are doing there would virtually constitute an approval or otherwise of the expenditure of the 1.2 billion Ghana cedis. And he was emphatic that if any communication from the committee has to go to Parliament itself, plenary, it would be by way of information and not approval. Essentially making the point that the Finance Committee, per the provisions in the Constitution, as far as his understanding is concerned, can give the necessary approval to the Finance Minister. And then buttressing the point that that's probably how come the Speaker just suspended Parliament indefinitely. Is that your understanding, that the Finance Committee can give that approval, or it has to come back to the plenary?
It's the same understanding, warped understanding. It goes to Code Order 6. Order 6 says that where no provision is made, the Speaker can come in. I wish that I could take you through memory lane, but that would spoil the beauty of this discussion. When Professor Mills in the NDC died, the NDC constitution didn't contemplate death of candidate. So its constitution and its regulation did not make provision for it. In that instance, the neck of the party could exercise a residual power. In this matter, Order 46 is tried knowledge. How do you adjourn a meeting? Today you are struggling to redefine sitting. Sitting is defined in the standing orders of Parliament. It's not to be defined by him or the Speaker. The standing orders define sitting. Sittings make up a meeting, and a meeting make up a session. I don't want to go far. Even the use of the word, granted that I use prorogue, they didn't like it. Prorogue in English means discontinue. Hasn't he discontinued Parliament?
So,
apart from responding, take full force with the key person.
and in addition to that, just for clarity, so has the Finance Committee approved this request or further deliberation? Okay, thank you.
The ranking member will answer you, but colleague, also do well to help the Ghanaian people. 1771. The article is broken into two, 1771 and 1772. Have they done the two? When will they do the two? That means that in doing the two, they will come back to Parliament. You want me to repeat it again? You know, it is their understanding that the Finance Committee, read Article 103.
Hannah Idrisu is minority leader there, speaking after Mr. Forson also spoke, who was at the meeting by the Finance Committee, reporting on what they were told at that meeting. Talks about the national buffer stock and the fact that no details were given as to what food, what was to be bought by the national buffer stock, for which money was being allocated. Talks about 200 million cedis that government wants to spend on water for everybody, as government has said that will enjoy water for 3 months for free. Talks about 80 million allowance that has been set aside for 4 months for frontline workers. Clarity, he says, was needed there as well. And then he talks about some 2 million cedis that was supposed to be spent on fuel. He said details were not given as to exactly how all these amounts were to be spent. They're seeking more clarification from the Finance Minister. We'll bring you more of that in our subsequent bulletins right now.